Chapter 805. In fact, Zhang Xiu was also a shrewd person. He knew that he would not be able to resist the temptation, so he had already taken out the god's sealing monument and left a trace of his divine sense inside. If there were any strange movements, the god's sealing monument should be able to launch a life-saving blow. As for how much damage it would cause to the opponent, that was unknown. If he could kill the opponent in one blow, then Zhang Xiu would have a chance to live. If he couldn't, then this deep sleep would be eternal sleep. The blood in the ancestral blood pool was boiling. This was all Cheng Lingsu's blood. No matter who it was, blood was extremely precious, even if they had reached the divine emperor realm. If she bled every day, it would definitely have a great impact on her body. Even so, Cheng Lingsu still filled up such a large blood pool. This was simply unimaginable. The blood in Zhang Xiu's body was constantly surging. His blood cells were sublimated and constantly awakened, blooming with unparalleled power. For many races, including ordinary humans and Protoss, when in deep sleep, their brains would lose their consciousness, but their bodies would operate faster. The effect could be described as a qualitative change, completely different from when they were awake. Deep sleep was a very mysterious state. When in a state of extreme exhaustion, the recovery from sleep could not be compared to no amount of rest. At this moment, Zhang Xiu's body was like this. He was rapidly growing at an astonishing speed. This was also the reason why Protoss viewed the blood pool as a supreme treasure. Perhaps this speed was 10 times, dozens of times, or even 100 times faster than when he was awake. This was only because of the person and the race. The difference between people was huge, and the difference between divine cultivators was also huge. In the blood pool, Zhang Xiu's body constantly emitted a silver light. What flowed in this light was not the Heaven's Inquisition talisman, but extremely mysterious characters. No, it shouldn't be considered a problem. It was just a very abstract and strange pattern. Moreover, it was constantly changing, and it was impossible to understand. However, these strange and small patterns showed the mysteries of heaven and earth that could not be seen through. At the same time, Zhang Xiu's body was rapidly growing. Pop pop, pop pop pop. The blood in the blood pool constantly emitted traces of light. In the village outside the blood pool, the mischievous child from before was playing with his friends. Although they were young, they were all heavenly deities. For ordinary god cultivators, it would take a lot of effort for them to reach the heavenly god level. But for them, the heavenly god level was something they were born with. After they were born, their race awakened, and they became heavenly gods immediately. When they ran, there was light. When they were angry and fought, their destructive power was also very shocking. Houses and trees were like tofu in front of them. However, every time he was naughty, he would be taught a lesson by his elders. "Damao, what are we playing today? It's so boring." A round child fell to the ground with his arms and legs spread out. His bulging belly rippled like a water balloon. His nose was filled with the fragrance of soil and grass. "What are we playing? How am I supposed to know?" The mischievous boy with big eyes also sat down beside him, very bored, with a weed in his mouth. Although they were all heavenly gods, in this isolated village, there was too little entertainment. They didn't even have a bird or cricket fight, and there were only a few playmates. "Who was that person just now? I saw the chief bring him to the blood pool," the fat man said. "I think he's very powerful," the big-eyed boy said. The fat man sat up. "How do you know he's very powerful?" "Feeling," the big-eyed boy said confidently. "Did you see the chief's attitude towards him? He even let him walk in front. If he wasn't powerful, the chief wouldn't be so polite to him." What you said makes sense." "What do you mean, makes sense?" "It's obviously very reasonable." The big-eyed boy stood up and said excitedly, "Little fatty, why don't we go to the blood pool to play?" Little fatty shook his head like a rattledrum. "No, no. If we get caught, we'll have to soak in the blood pool. That's even more boring than being bored. I think he might have gone into the blood pool. Let's go and tease him." "That's not good, right?" The big-eyed kid called Damao said disdainfully, "Coward, are you going or not?" If you're not going, then I'm going. After that, he didn't even look back and really strode forward. Hey, Demao, wait for me. Little Fatty climbed up from the ground and quickly chased after him. The unconscious Chang Lingsu had already been brought back to her palace, and the most outstanding immortal doctor of Ancient Hall came to diagnose her. She didn't have any fatal injuries, and it was all exhaustion. Although it wasn't fatal, it would make her very weak. First, it was the great fate art, and now it was the heavens will concealment. It's nothing serious. She's just too weak, which is why she fainted. The immortal doctor said after the diagnosis. Prepare some spiritual herbs for the divine emperor. Slowly nourish her, and she should get better. However, at this moment, a figure flashed outside the palace, and an image appeared in the void outside the palace. Then, it landed on the ground and walked over unhurriedly. She was very similar to Chang Lingsu, who was lying on the bed. Suddenly, Chang Lingsu opened her eyes. Years of vigilance allowed her to sense danger. She turned around and saw Chang Lingran. She stood up. It's been a long time. Chang Lingsu's voice was very calm. Yes, it's been a long time. A few hundred years, or a few thousand years. Chang Lingran's voice was as gentle as ever, and her temperament was as graceful as ever. Chang Lingsu's face was also very calm. What, you're not going to show yourself? You suddenly appeared because you found a way to deal with me? Chang Lingran said, You've already fainted on the bed, and you need the immortal doctor to save you. Do you still need me to find a way to deal with you? You can just do it. Chang Lingsu didn't panic in the slightest. She actually took a few steps forward, and the maid behind her held up her long skirt. Your situation isn't much better. Moreover, Zhang Xiu is here. He's already a divine emperor. Do you think he'll let you kill me? The two sisters seemed calm, but dark clouds were gathering above the ancient court. Lightning flashed, and a violent battle was about to descend. Chang Lingran's expression was calm. It's shocking that he could become a divine emperor so quickly. Unfortunately, I'm afraid he won't be able to interfere in our matters. Chang Lingsu was startled. Chang Lingran suddenly appeared. With her personality, she wouldn't do this if she wasn't confident. She asked the person beside her softly, Where's Zhang Xiu? The person beside her replied, Tianwan clan leader took him to the blood pool. Boom! Chang Lingsu's mind exploded, and her face turned even paler. She looked at the person beside her in disbelief. The latter was very confused and frightened. He didn't know why the divine emperor had such a big reaction. No, that's impossible. Chang Lingran said, You don't believe me? Why don't you find Tianwan clan leader and ask him? See what he'll say. Chang Lingsu's heart sank. The Chang Lingran in front of her was still the same as before. She looked soft and gentle, but her every move could take your life. She was like a needle in silk. Divine Emperor, should I call Tianwan clan leader over? Before she could finish her sentence, the Tianwan clan leader had already walked into the hall. His expression was very natural, and there wasn't much change in his expression. Cheng Lingsu's eyes revealed great disappointment as she asked, Why? Tianwan clan leader was originally very calm, but in the end, he revealed an ashamed expression. After all, Cheng Lingsu had treated him well. For the Tianwan clan, the most important thing is to continue the bloodline. This is what I can do. As for the two of you, it doesn't matter to us who is the master of the ancient court. Cheng Lingsu's eyes revealed shock and confusion. In the end, it turned into helplessness and anger. What you're doing will only bring destruction to everything. Cheng Lingran interrupted, The Tianwan clan will never be destroyed. Only you and the minor repairs will be destroyed. You shouldn't exist. Chapter 806. Within the ancient court, the divine Emperor Chang Lingsu stood tall and straight. Her gaze was resolute. Other than her slightly pale face, no one could imagine the danger she was in. If I fight to the death, you might not be able to gain any advantage. Cheng Lingran shook her head lightly. You don't have to scare me. After you used the Great Fate technique last time, you were already like a lamp that had run out of oil. Your condition is much worse than mine." Cheng Lingsu's eyes sparkled as she looked at Cheng Lingran. Cheng Lingran had a moving smile on her face. The two were too familiar with each other and were testing each other's strength. Cheng Lingran said, "You've really grown up. You're no longer the willful little girl from before. You were betrayed by the person you trusted the most, but your expression didn't change at all. Even I have to admire your foundation." "Lord Patriarch, did the minor repairs go down to the blood pool?" Tianwen Patriarch replied, "Yes. I saw him go down with my own eyes. Furthermore, I saw him fall into a deep sleep. If there were no accidents, he wouldn't have woken up so soon." "You heard that?" Cheng Lingran said. "Do you think I'm lying to you? That can't be." Tianwen Patriarch continued, "I've already told Zhang Xiu beforehand that the Divine Emperor put in a little bit of blood every day, accumulating it bit by bit. You even set up a defensive formation outside that only he can break. If there were any accidents, then he would definitely think that it was the Divine Emperor who did it." Cheng Lingsu's expression finally changed. "This time, I'll see how you use the Great Fate technique to turn the wheel of fate." Cheng Lingran's face revealed a rare trace of fierceness. Her killing intent had already leaked out. Cheng Lingsu suddenly smiled. Her smile was as beautiful as a flower, and her eyes regained their vigor. "Sister, are you really confident that you can win against me?" "You." Cheng Lingran's expression changed because she felt Cheng Lingsu's aura suddenly and inexplicably become stronger. It was so strong that it was close to her peak level. "What happened?" He. Cheng Lingsu laughed in a relaxed manner. "I've already mastered the Great Fate art. Although I'll lose half my life after using it once, it's been so long. How can my body not recover? I was too competitive in the past, but I always suffered at your hands every time. This time, I've learned to be smart. I pretended to be weak. Sister, you don't think that my nature will never change, do you?" Cheng Lingran's face turned completely pale. "That's right. I don't want to change, and I won't change. But I can still accept being wronged once." Cheng Lingsu's expression became very relaxed. Her whole body was like a spring breeze. Dazzling light flowed out of her body. Her whole person was incomparably holy, and even the heaven and earth became holy. "Do you still have the confidence to kill me now?" After a while, Cheng Lingran said unwillingly, "You lied to me. Humph, do you think you've won? We'll only know who's the victor after we fight." Boom! Cheng Lingran opened her hands. Her whole body emitted a silver light. Behind her, the light condensed like a hurricane. A gust of wind shook, and a sparkling and translucent light wing formed on her back. The wingspan was more than 10 meters. Buzz! With a flap of the wings, she instantly streaked across the misty sky like a shooting star. "Ha!" Cheng Lingsu shouted. Her back shook violently and a pair of light wings also appeared. She had already turned into a stream of light and chased after her. The two god kings in the sky fought. Their super-fast speed caused the void to vibrate and collide with each other. Loud bangs were heard, and the space was blasted apart. "Apart from the Great Fate art, you're inferior to me in every aspect. Even your Great Fate art can only affect those below the God King realm." Cheng Lingran said as she flew ahead. "Then why are you running?" "Who said I'm running? I just don't want to destroy Ancient Court's palace because of the battle." All right, she hadn't even become the master of Ancient Court, but she was already worrying for it. Many years ago, the two of them showed their talents in Ancient Court. They both had the top bloodline of ancient god Tianwen. Their talents and cultivation were similar, and they were both goddesses. On a certain day, when Ancient Court's predecessor was nearing the end of his lifespan, he called the two of them to the main hall. He wanted to pass on the throne. At that time, everyone thought that it would be Cheng Lingran. Her sister was tolerant and gentle. Moreover, she had already interfered in various matters of Ancient Court. She was deeply supported and liked by various figures. On the other hand, Chang Ling-su was also a talented girl. Her personality was a bit more lively, and she was a bit unruly. In addition, she was a bit playful. Although she was diligent in cultivation, she didn't like to care about the matters of ancient court. However, the successor announced by the ancient court's emperor before his death exceeded everyone's expectations. Of course, it also exceeded the expectations of Chang Lingran, who was determined to obtain the throne. He passed the throne to Chang Ling-su, who was a bit playful and didn't like to do anything. Why? There's no reason. One could imagine Chang Lingran's mood at that time. She was someone who could kill people for the sake of family property on earth. How much did she yearn for the throne? She was cautious and conscientious and did everything perfectly for ancient court, but in the end, it was all thanks to Chang Ling-su. She couldn't accept it. She couldn't accept it. Because you are a hypocrite. Chang Lingran's gaze gradually became cold, ruthless, and sinister. No one can take away what belongs to me. At this time, in Tianwan village, two children who were only 6 or 7 years old were laughing and playing with each other as they walked towards the blood pool. When they reached the edge of the blood pool, they found that the blood pool was exceptionally quiet today. Even the guards were not there. Just in case, the Tianwan village's leader would send someone from the Divine King to send these people away. They weren't from the Tianwan village, so they couldn't enter the blood pool. This was a restriction set by the previous Divine King, so it was absolutely impossible to break. There's no one. Then we can go in. The two hid behind a rock. After making sure that there was no one inside, they stuck half of their bodies out. Demao, who had big eyes, was very agile. I'll go first, you stay behind. This was the method they often used to deal with the elders in the village. They had already formed a tacit understanding, but today, this tacit understanding was useless. There was really no one inside. Come out, it's safe. Little Fatty was still conservative. He waited for a while before coming out from behind the rock. His round head was very cute. That's strange, why is there no one today? That was exactly what they wanted. It's good that there's no one here. Let's go find that newcomer. Demao took the lead and walked in. They passed through one blood pool after another, searching as they walked, but they didn't find him. I guessed right, that person should be very powerful. I didn't see him in the Divine King's blood pool, then. Little Fatty's gaze also fell on the blood pool at the highest point. He's in the Divine Emperor pool. My goodness, he's really powerful. No wonder the chief is so respectful to him. The two had already climbed to the highest point and stood outside the red light circle. They saw Jiang Xiu lying inside, his body emitting a dazzling silver light. He's really inside. There's a light shield outside the ancestral blood pool. The last time I came here, I was in so much pain when I touched it. Then how do we go in? Little Fatty was very troubled. Demao was more cunning. He said, Little Fatty, you have a lot of meat. Don't be afraid. Charge in with all your strength and you'll definitely be able to break the shield. Then, we'll catch him and hang him at the entrance of the village. Then, we'll be very impressive. The lords will definitely ask around to find out who did this. This person is too powerful. Even the Lord Patriarch has to be respectful to him. Do you think those lords will still dare to shout at us in the future and force us to either cultivate or soak in blood pools all day long? Little Fatty was also fascinated. Definitely not. Then what are we waiting for? Charge. Demao took a step back and said, I've given you such a difficult task. Don't disappoint me. Charge with all your strength. I'll cover you from behind. Little Fatty was often tricked by Demao. Although he knew that he was being tricked many times, he still did as he was told. He still felt that Demao was very loyal. He nodded his head vigorously and said, Okay. Then his face darkened and he frowned. He revealed a very serious expression and charged towards the light shield. With a miserable cry, he rushed over without any hindrance, and even fell into the blood pool headfirst. What was going on? Chapter 807. The two divine emperors of the Cheng family were like two streams of light shuttling through the white clouds in the sky. At this moment, the sky was blue and the wind was whistling. Wherever they passed, the void would explode, like fireworks exploding in the sky. Cheng Lingsu raised her hand leisurely and placed it flat in front of her chest. Her 10 fingers bent and undulated, touching a strange seal. The next moment, as soon as the seal appeared, purple light immediately appeared in her eyes. Wherever her fingers passed, layers of ripples were set off in the void, spreading in all directions. In front of her, Cheng Lingran vaguely felt that something was wrong. She was very sensitive to power, but at this moment, whether it was her mood or the battle situation, she was a little out of control. Naturally, it would affect her state of mind. As the ripples rolled over, the sound of the wind surged. Suddenly, she felt that something was wrong. Suddenly, countless phantoms appeared in front of her. Then, a painful expression appeared on her beautiful face. She knew that it was not good. The little girl's great fate technique was too difficult to deal with. Immediately, she stabilized her mind and frantically urged her spiritual power to resist the phantom's invasion. The giant wheel of fate pulled by the great fate technique could not change the fate of divine emperors of the same level. Otherwise, Cheng Lingran would have been dealt with long ago. She would have died if she wanted to, and she would have lived if she wanted to, but in fact, it was impossible. However, it could cause a lot of damage. Under the urging of Cheng Lingran's spell, a pale golden light suddenly rolled out. It rotated in the air and turned into a pale purple rune. Immediately, she regained some clarity. Although Cheng Lingran did not know the real mystery of the great fate technique, she would naturally study it. At least, she had mastered a way to deal with it. Fate's fall. She did not sink into it. She quickly tried to get rid of it, but she felt weak. She did not want to show weakness. Without saying anything, she opened her mouth and spat out a small purple flag. Casting a spell, the small flag swelled in the wind, and the pattern of a divine bird burning with purple flames appeared on the surface of the flag. Violent purple flames surged out as he waved his hand. Seeing this, Cheng Lingsu raised her eyebrows and flicked her sleeve. A purple light shot out. She grabbed it and poured her divine power into it. Immediately, there were explosions around her. Then, she raised her hand and a purple pattern appeared. It hovered above her head and turned into a purple light curtain to protect her. With a swoosh, Cheng Lingsu was fearless. She turned into a purple light and rushed toward the purple flame. She caused the flame to surge, but it was blocked by the light shield. What? Cheng Lingran was shocked when she saw a dark shadow pass through the flames and emerge in an instant. She immediately slashed out with a sword in her hand. The purple divine fire was a treasure passed down from ancient Ting. In the past, whenever it was used, it would greatly suppress Cheng Lingsu. However, it did not seem to affect Cheng Lingran at all. Ding! With a crisp sound, Cheng Lingran's long sword slashed at her opponent's shield. Or rather, it should be said that Cheng Lingsu collided with the long sword. When the two forces collided, an unimaginable power exploded. Immediately, the two of them were sent flying. Cheng Lingran's sword was instantly covered in cracks and collapsed, while Cheng Lingsu's shield was the same. It disappeared. Cheng Lingran roared angrily when she saw that she had taken her attack head-on. She waved the purple flag again. Every time she waved it, a wave of purple flames would rise. The temperature continued to rise, burning holes in the sky. It was like burning holes in a piece of paper with a cigarette butt. Cheng Lingsu's expression did not change at all. She did not dodge. Instead, she chanted an incantation and the 10 flags changed. The surroundings became dazzling, and sharp sword chi flew out from them, shooting forward like a rain of swords. You're no match for me. Accept your death. The rain of swords seemed to exist in another void. The trajectory of the swords seemed to be dependent on another void, passing through the flames. Humph, you think too highly of yourself. Cheng Lingran turned her body and shot into the distance. However, she was already extremely shocked. In terms of strength, she felt that she was weaker than Cheng Lingsu. Moreover, Her physical condition was not as good as Chang Lingsu's, so she had fallen into her opponent's trap. Everything was very disadvantageous for her. Explode! Chang Lingran suddenly chanted, and the flames behind her exploded. Fire! It was all fire. Moreover, the power and heat of the explosion at this moment had reached a terrifying peak. It also affected the space that was dependent on it. The sword qi, which was originally unobstructed, was immediately swallowed by the flames. However, a figure came in one after another. Chang Lingsu's speed was extremely fast, and the incantation hummed around her. Cheng Lingran felt that her head was incomparably heavy. The stable divine pattern that appeared on her forehead suddenly trembled slightly, and with a bang, it exploded. Cheng Lingran's whole body sank. Her face turned pale, and she spat out a few strands of blood. Sister, die here. You and I have to end this grudge in the end. Cheng Lingran's pretty face was pale. She finally let out an angry roar. You want to kill me? It's still too early. You chose the path yourself. You can't blame others. You're already an arrow at the end of its flight. Following that, the purple light in Chang Lingsu's eyes condensed, and her white jade fingers changed like a wheel. Ah! Cheng Lingran cried out in pain. Her whole body flew forward even faster, and the purple flag in her hand fell. Her eyes became dull, and her face twisted in pain because of the struggle. Cheng Lingsu, you want to kill me? It's not that easy. Her figure suddenly transformed, and a purple brilliance gushed out from her whole body. After the whirlpool-like mine grew several times, it shot forward like a sprayer. Secret spirit technique. Cheng Lingsu's incantation resounded. Her figure came from afar, and the long sword in her hand suddenly slashed down. Chang Lingran shouted angrily, and turned around to slash with her sword. With a bang, the two of them collided. Chang Lingsu had the upper hand, and she chased after her fiercely. The two of them were so fast that only their afterimages were left. Even these afterimages were from a long time ago. The sky was vast, and the sea of clouds was hazy. One moment they were in the west, and the next moment they were in the east. The sky was falling and the earth was splitting. In war, the more the weak, the more the winner would win. This was a cycle. As the saying goes, a defeated army is like a landslide. Cheng Lingran was holding on very hard. She could only grit her teeth and hold on bitterly. In her heart, she secretly blamed herself for being careless. She actually fell into Su Su's trap and delivered herself to her doorstep. Now she couldn't escape even if she wanted to, and the injuries on her body were getting worse. Damn it! She opened her mouth and spat out another mouthful of blood. In the blood pool, little Fatty was frantically struggling in panic. De Mao, who was above, was already stunned. Then his eyes lit up. You knocked him away. This is too miraculous. As he spoke, De Mao also ran over. However, he didn't want to be in such a sorry state like little Fatty. He stood by the blood pool and asked, How is he? Little Fatty patted Jiang Xiu. Hey, wake up. Idiot, you can't wake him up in the blood pool. Get him out. Oh. Although little Fatty was small, he was already an enlightened god after all. It wasn't difficult at all for him to get Jiang Xiu out. He carried him and with a light leap, they reached the shore. Jiang Xiu's skin was full of fine silver light. His entire person was incomparably holy. De Mao, what do we do now? De Mao said, What do we do? Didn't we agree? Bring him back to the village and hang him on a tree. Let the adults see how impressive we are. Little Fatty said, Yes, yes, yes. He's so strange. Why is his body glowing? It's like he's smeared with a layer of silver secret gold. Tell me, how strong is he exactly? De Mao said, Who cares? I'll raise my head and you raise your leg. Oh. Little Fatty said, Why should I raise my leg? This time I want to raise my head. All right then, you raise your head and I raise my leg. However, we have to turn him around and lift him face down. De Mao said. This confused little fatty again. Why? Idiot, face up. What if he wakes up halfway and sees us like this? Then wouldn't we be in a terrible state? If we raise him face down, the moment he wakes up, we'll let go and run. When he falls to the ground, he won't be able to see us at all. He can only eat a mouthful of dirt. Yes, yes. Chapter 808. The two little fellows were used to sneaking around. They easily avoided the eyes of the adults and carried Jiang Xiu all the way to the village. Then, they hung Jiang Xiu on the most conspicuous tree trunk. Then, they just had to wait for the adults to discover them. The two little fellows hid in the distance, feeling smug, imagining the shock of the adults when they saw them. Little fatty, the two of us have amazed the world with a single brilliant feat. De Mao was very proud. He hated it when the adults always preached to them and scolded them for the slightest thing. It's also time to let them know how powerful we are. Yes. Little fatty nodded heavily. But the two of them waited for a while and did not see any of the adults discover them. Hence, De Mao was a little anxious. Why haven't the adults come out? It won't do if no one discovers them. Little fatty said, why don't we call the adults out ourselves? Are you stupid? Wouldn't that be embarrassing? Of course, when everyone is shocked by this matter, the two of us will swagger out and tell them that we were the ones who did it. Only then will it be impressive enough. Suddenly, a voice sounded. Indeed, that would be more impressive. The two little brats stared blankly. After they finished speaking, they turned around and saw Jiang Xiu standing behind them. In disbelief, they turned around to look at the big tree at the entrance of the village, but Jiang Xiu was no longer there. You. Jiang Xiu looked at them with a half-smile. At this moment, his body was still covered in silver light. Slowly, starting from the top of his head, it receded like the tide, revealing his true appearance. If I hang you up there, you dare. De Mao stood up. Let me tell you, we are not ordinary children. We are gods, very powerful gods. Ordinary people are no match for us. Let me give you a word of advice. Hurry up and run. Jiang Xiu smiled faintly. Is that so? Jiang Xiu suddenly moved. In the blink of an eye, he heard the screams of the two little brats. They had already been caught by Jiang Xiu and thrown onto a tree. With a tearing sound, their pants were taken off and they were hung on the tree by Jiang Xiu. Put us down. Woo woo woo. Let us go. The adults who heard the commotion ran out of their houses, only to see De Mao and little fatty being hung on a tree by the strange guests. One of the strong men walked out and asked, Dear guests, these two are still children. Jiang Xiu said, Children, of course. Could you please let them go? Jiang Xiu looked up and smiled softly. Of course, but they have to hang it up for an hour for the whole village to see. No. De Mao started to cry. Put us down. Jiang Xiu said, Why? You can hang me up on a tree, but you can't ask others to do it? De Mao and little fatty just cried and didn't answer. We were wrong. The clansmen began to whisper amongst themselves. Some of them even snickered. This wasn't some great master. Children had to be taught. Jiang Xiu saw them admit their mistakes and said, All right, I'll let you off. Boom boom. There was an earth-shattering sound in the sky. Jiang Xiu asked in surprise, What's going on? The strong man said, It seems that there are strong people fighting in the sky. They've been fighting for a long time. The power of an emperor. Jiang Xiu's relaxed expression suddenly changed. The people present were in an uproar. Emperors fighting, this. They were shocked. The two children stopped crying and looked up at the sky. It was too far away. With their eyesight and hearing, they couldn't see it at all. My lord, are you saying that the emperor is fighting with someone? The emperor? Cheng Lingsu? Above the sky, the purple spiritual fire swept the clouds in the sky. Two figures shuttled back and forth at an extremely fast speed. Suddenly, they rushed to the far end. With a boom, there was a loud rumbling sound. The sword light of the two collided. Under a burst of brilliance, it suddenly became crazy. Although Cheng Ling Ran blocked Chang Ling Su's attack, she spat out blood again. Cheng Ling Ran. Zhang Xiu's eyesight was so good that he saw the fight clearly. He also saw that Chang Ling Su's opponent was Cheng Ling Ran, who had died in his hands before. They finally met again. However, at this moment, Cheng Ling Ran was in a miserable state. She was crushed and beaten all the way and was already injured. According to Zhang Xiu's estimation, if she didn't have a special way to escape, it was very likely that she would die in Cheng Ling Su's hands. Why is she here? Cheng Ling Su shook her wrist and immediately urged her divine power. The bracelet on her wrist made a buzzing sound. The sound was very pleasant, like the clear sound of an empty valley. However, the sword in her hand turned into countless shadows because of the sound. Huh! Even with Zhang Xiu's eyes, he couldn't tell which sword was the real one. She's going to lose. Rip. Cheng Lingren's sword burst out. When she waved her sword, the sword in front of her was impenetrable. However, the sword light pierced through. A scream resounded and blood splashed. Ah! She flew back and a wound of more than 10 centimeters appeared on her left shoulder. If it wasn't for the defensive sword technique, she might have lost her life. Die. Zhang Xiu's eyes were filled with astonishment. Cheng Ling Su's strength was beyond his expectations. No, to be precise, Cheng Ling Su should be very weak. When Zhang Xiu saw her, she was already sick. Later, she was concealed by the power of heaven. Logically speaking, she should have been seriously injured. Liar. Zhang Xiu's heart was filled with anger. He was so stupid to let her go. She was just acting from the beginning to the end. Cheng Ling Su. Cheng Ling Ran faced another shocking sword attack. She didn't have the strength to resist. Her eyes flashed with fear, but more than that, she was unwilling to accept the result. She didn't expect that she would lose in the end. No, she couldn't accept it. She really couldn't accept it. Just when she was in despair, she felt a powerful divine emperor's power. Looking down, she saw a man standing far below the sky, a man she couldn't be more familiar with. Minor repairs. Minor repairs. Save me. Boom. Zhang Xiu's whole body erupted with unparalleled power. His current speed was much faster than when he returned to Earth. He was faster and faster, rising from the sky. He had already given up on Cheng Ling Ran, but he still had doubts. She can't die yet. However, in the face of Zhang Xiu's attack, Cheng Ling Su didn't stop. She fiercely strengthened the power of the sword technique, intending to kill Cheng Ling Ran. Save me! Cheng Ling Ran screamed in horror. The sword technique in Zhang Xiu's hand shot forward, pulling his whole body forward again. He finally arrived before the long sword cut Cheng Ling Ran. Fast, it was too fast. Ding! There was a crisp sound. Although the sword looked ordinary, behind the sword, there was a divine emperor's power that affected the whole world. It was as if all the airflow was being pulled. It was unimaginably huge. After the sword light hit Cheng Ling Su's sword, Cheng Ling Su's long sword showed signs of flying out of her hand. Although she finally held it tightly, it was more than a meter away. The sword fell down, falling right beside Cheng Ling Ran. Phew! Cheng Ling Ran let out a long breath. She was so scared that her soul almost flew out of her body. Stop! Zhang Xiu rushed over and stood between the two, staring at Cheng Ling Su. When Cheng Ling Su saw that Zhang Xiu had saved Cheng Ling Ran, she frowned and said, "Get out of the way, get out of the way." Cheng Ling Ran was scared like an injured rabbit. She hurriedly hid behind Zhang Xiu. Minor repairs. Save me. Get out of the way, let me kill him. Cheng Ling Su raised her long sword and was about to kill again. Zhang Xiu said angrily, "I told you to stop." His eyes were burning with anger. "Isn't your body very weak? Aren't you under the divine concealment? Ha ha ha, what else do you have to say now?" Cheng Ling Ran said, "Minor repairs, you fell into a trap. She and the Tianwen clan leader tricked you into the blood pool and put you into a deep sleep. They threaten to kill you to lure me in. Let's work together to kill her. Chapter 809. In the sky, clouds floated and flames burned. Zhang Xiu's long hair fluttered in the wind. His eyes flashed like lightning as he stared at Cheng Lingran. Save you? This is the biggest joke in the world. Don't forget that I, Chek Yi, died in your hands. Cheng Lingran lowered her head sadly. Minor repairs. That wasn't my intention. Everything was under Chang Lingsu's control. What do you mean? Cheng Lingran said, You're doing well with me. Why would I harm you? I did these things because I had no choice. The wheel of fate is spinning. Under the great fate technique, I'll do whatever she wants me to do. She wanted me to kill you and turn us against each other. Under the great fate technique, I didn't have the ability to resist. Zhang Xiu was stunned. What? Nonsense. If that was the case, you would have died a long time ago if she wanted you dead. Why did she have to kill you so painstakingly? Chang Lingran said, Because I am a god king, I could resist her great fate technique. However, the Cheng Lingran on earth couldn't resist it. So she could only do whatever she wanted and harm me again and again? Zhang Xiu's expression changed slightly. You're saying that these things weren't your intention. She used the great fate technique to influence you. Yes. Chang Lingsu pursed her lips when she heard this. She didn't say anything, but her eyes were wide open. When she saw that Zhang Xiu's heart had been shaken, tears welled up in her eyes. Zhang Xiu, I didn't. Zhang Xiu said, Then what about today's matter? Clan leader Wentian is one of your people. The blood pool was filled with your blood. Also, there was that defensive barrier that only I could break. You had already set up a trap for me. If it wasn't for the 2 children in the village who fished me out of the blood pool, you would have killed me after killing Rang Ran. You are the goddess who has always wanted to harm me. Cheng Lingsu stared at Zhang Xiu as she felt pain in her heart. Her eyes were already moist as she spoke. I didn't, it wasn't me. Why don't you believe me? The 2 of us are both goddesses. The one who harmed you has always been her. She was afraid that you would join forces with me once you reached the immortal Emperor realm. Hence, she descended to the immortal martial continent and caused your death. I didn't notice it until your funeral at Tianqing School. I didn't know you were dead. As she spoke, tears fell from her eyes. Of course, a dead person can't be revived, but there is a top-secret technique that can, and that is the Great Fate technique. The reason why I used the Great Fate technique was to save you. Cheng Lingsu said, Yes, I was very willful at the time and hurt you, but didn't I also suffer your torment after the Great Fate art? Can't we call it even? Zhang Xiu didn't say anything. After the Great Fate art, he did torment Cheng Lingsu quite a bit, and Su Su also liked him very much after he attended her funeral. However, this wasn't the main point. The main point was that Zhang Xiu came back from the dead. Did Cheng Lingsu use the Great Fate technique purely to save him? Zhang Xiu's expression changed slightly. He said with a bit of a guilty conscience, Would you be so kind? Before this, their interactions were all because Cheng Lingsu didn't take Zhang Xiu seriously at all, no matter how hard he pursued her. After that, they parted ways. It was impossible for Cheng Lingsu to go against the heavens for him. Although the Great Fate technique was powerful, it would lead to unpredictable consequences after it was used. Moreover, since Cheng Lingran was her enemy and surrounded by strong enemies, she would fight with her life on the line for him. Why don't you believe me? I'm your wife, your real fiancée. Back then, if Cheng Lingran didn't get someone to kill Uncle Jiang with a car, I would have married you. After it happened, I didn't know the truth and thought that I had harmed your family. I couldn't face you, so I ran away. However, I felt very guilty. After I found out about your death, I knew that Cheng Lingran was waiting for me to use the Great Fate technique, but I still used it without hesitation. At this point, Cheng Lingsu was already in tears. Zhang Xiu's heart trembled. You still don't believe me? Zhang Xiu hesitated. There had always been a doubt in his heart. If Cheng Lingsu was a goddess, Why did she use the great fate technique to make him return to his youth since she had already killed him? Yes, that blood pool was accumulated by me day by day. Therefore, I was losing chi and blood every day. My face was pale, and I was so weak that I often fainted. I even set up a defensive shield outside that only you could unlock because I didn't want you to be killed by her again. A divine emperor can only use the great fate technique once in his life. If you die again, I can't save you. Only when you become a divine emperor, she can't harm you. Zhang Xiu's eyes gradually blurred. When he thought of the blood pool in his mind, the soft part of his heart was touched and faintly hurt. No, minor repairs. Don't believe her. She's lying to you. Zhang Xiu was caught in the middle. His mind was filled with all kinds of past events. His mind was in a mess. It was as if as long as he was involved with these two sisters, he would become dizzy and disoriented. What was the most difficult thing to cross? That was the feelings of youth. Little Xiu, don't fall into her trap. She doesn't have any feelings for you. I'm your real wife. We were on Earth. Whether it was before or after the great fate technique, I was always your woman. I was your legal wife. I still remember that we were sitting in the wedding car. We were supposed to have an unprecedentedly grand wedding, but under the influence of her great fate spell, your blood dyed my wedding dress red. I will never forget that scene. Yes. Cheng Lingran was the woman Zhang Xiu loved the most. She was the woman who comforted and saved him when he was infinitely down and out. She was also the woman he married in both of his lives. She used the great fate technique because she wanted to kill me. I almost died in her hands. Don't forget, if it weren't for those two children who fished you out of the blood pool today, we would all be dead. Zhang Xiu looked back at Cheng Lingsu. His eyes gradually turned cold. You don't believe me. Cheng Lingsu's tear-stained face revealed an extremely poignant and bitter smile. This smile was filled with helplessness, mockery, and regret. In the end, it all turned into pain. Between the two of them, Zhang Xiu's heart was definitely biased towards Cheng Lingran. After all, they had sweet memories. You want to kill me? Cheng Lingsu could feel the killing intent in Zhang Xiu's eyes. Her tears fell silently again. She nodded and said painfully, I know, you still hate me in your heart. No matter how much I do for you, no matter how much I sacrifice, you'd rather be deaf and blind. Zhang Xiu's eyes were cold. Since that's the case, then what's the point of living? Cheng Lingsu roared like a demon. Her hair and clothes flew up. Didn't you want to kill me? No need, I'll give my life to you now. Cheng Lingsu turned the sword around. Zhang Xiu's eyes widened. What was she going to do? With a poochie sound, the sword ruthlessly pierced through her body. Blood immediately dyed the immortal doctor red. Zhang Xiu was stunned. He was stunned. He was dumbfounded. No. He suddenly screamed and rushed towards Cheng Lingsu. The sword light on the sword surged and scattered, cutting off all signs of life from her body. No, Zhang Xiu hugged the falling Cheng Lingsu. Why? Zhang Xiu's steel-like handsome face twitched. His eyes were red. Cheng Lingsu smiled sadly, but this time, her smile was much more relaxed. Do you believe me now? Yes, but it was all too late. Cheng Lingsu used her own death to prove her true feelings for Zhang Xiu. She used her own death to tell Zhang Xiu the truth. She hated this man, but she also loved him. Why are you so foolish? Tears finally fell from Zhang Xiu's eyes. All the things of the past were vivid in his mind. But at this moment, Zhang Xiu remembered something his mother said. Su Su is our benefactor. When his mother carried the young Zhang Xiu and fainted in front of their house, it was the 5-year-old Su Su who used all her strength to drag them into the house. She fed them porridge and saved their lives. I should have believed you. Su Su's face gradually dimmed. She reached out and touched Zhang Xiu's face. All the love and hatred in her eyes disappeared. There was only endless gentleness, the gentleness of a wife. Farewell. Chapter 8:10. Putting aside whether Jiang Xiu would join forces with Cheng Lingran, even if they did, with Cheng Lingsu's current cultivation, who had been a god king for many years, and who had mastered the Great Fate art, the #1 Great Fate art, even if the two of them joined forces, they wouldn't be able to kill her. However, she had chosen to commit suicide because Jiang Xiu didn't believe her. How disheartened must she be to do such a thing? Jiang Xiu couldn't imagine how much Cheng Lingsu had done behind his back. Using the Great Fate art to save him? In order to help him become a god king, she had endured the pain of bleeding every day, accumulating a pool of blood for him bit by bit? Or was there something else? Don't die, I believe you. Jiang Xiu looked at the lifeless Cheng Lingsu in his arms and felt as if a knife was piercing his heart. He asked himself why he was so stupid. Why? I beg you, don't die. Cheng Lingsu, who was in his arms, was fading away bit by bit. She turned into energy particles and drifted into the vast, traceless sky. No one could be eternal. Even the ancient gods could fall, let alone them. However, the dignified god Lord Gu Ting had committed suicide because of the word love. Ha 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 ha. Cheng Lingran's crazy laughter rang out. Dead, Cheng Lingsu is finally dead. It's good that she died, it's great that she died. Ha ha ha. Who would have thought that this silly girl would commit suicide because of the word love? Stupid, really stupid. Gu Ting shouldn't have chosen you as his master. Jiang Xiu glanced at Cheng Lingran, his scarlet eyes filled with terrifying killing intent. The situation was very clear now. You are the real goddess. Cheng Lingran happily flung her sleeves and said, Yes, I am the real goddess. Minor repairs. Actually, I don't have any opinions about you. Although it was an act, we were husband and wife for 2 lives. However, if I want to deal with her, I can only use you. This was the first time Cheng Lingran had said such sharp words. It was very different from her past image. However, this was the true face that Cheng Lingran had hidden the deepest. The face of evil. Jiang Xiu slowly straightened up and looked at Cheng Lingran angrily. Yi Bing is one of your people? Yes. She no longer hid it because there was no need to. Cheng Lingsu was very stupid, but her suicide proved that all the negative things were done by Cheng Lingran. There was no point in denying it. I knew that if I killed you, Cheng Lingsu would definitely use the Great Fate art to save you. Therefore, I was already waiting for an opportunity. Indeed, I succeeded. However, Cheng Lingsu was already prepared. I couldn't kill her in one go. In the end, I could only plant Yi Bing. Jiang Xiu coldly looked at her. You hate me? Cheng Lingran shook her head and said, It's too late. She's already dead. There's nothing that can save a divine emperor from death. You should give up. Cheng Lingran seemed to have said that even the Great Fate technique couldn't change a divine emperor's fate. In the end, the Great Fate technique was still a technique. A divine emperor naturally couldn't resist it. No, that's not right. Jiang Xiu said, If you're only using me to deal with Cheng Lingsu, then after Cheng Lingsu used the Great Fate technique to save me, why are you still trying to kill me? After equating Cheng Lingran with the goddess in his mind, Jiang Xiu's hatred for the goddess was completely transferred to her. His intuition was that the goddess was coming for him and was doing everything possible to kill him. Cheng Lingran didn't say anything. You don't just want to kill Cheng Lingsu. You want to kill me even more. Jiang Xiu judged. Cheng Lingran's eyes flickered. Don't talk nonsense. You just want to kill me to avenge Cheng Lingsu. Jiang Xiu's eyes were cold. Whether you want to kill me or Su Su, you must die here today. But before he finished speaking, more than 10 wind blades flew over. Humph. Jiang Xiu's body swayed. After his entire body became a blur, the wind blades passed through. Cheng Lingran was already heavily injured, so her power was greatly reduced. Looking up, she had only flapped her wings. The surface of her wings was covered in a silver light. With a flap, dozens of wind blades flew over. The silver light they emitted was even more solid. At the same time, Chang Lingran turned into more than 10 phantoms, shooting through the dense wind blades. The means of a divine emperor were indeed extraordinary. Even though she was injured like this, her attacks were still so shocking. What shocked Zhang Xiu even more was that Cheng Lingran's image changed again after she transformed from a virtuous woman into a cold and terrifying woman. She was so decisive. She was much more decisive than most of the men Zhang Xiu had seen. Boom! Zhang Xiu released a powerful force. In an instant, all the wind blades in the sky were knocked away. There was a series of clanking sounds. Regarding wind blades, Zhang Xiu was at grand perfection. As for Chang Lingran, the two sisters were the same. The reason why they became divine kings was because their divine bodies had reached maturity. In other words, they relied on their racial advantage. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiu was still in his growth stage. He became a divine king because of his magical arts. Therefore, he was still very confident in a battle of magical powers. In addition to his monstrous hatred, Zhang Xiu naturally wouldn't give her any face. Die! With a furious roar, Zhang Xiu's hands emitted a golden luster. He directly grabbed Chang Lingran and tore her into pieces in the air. However, what he tore apart were only her phantoms. Zhang Xiu's arm was suddenly brushed by a huge force. With a cracking sound, his entire arm was bent into a strange shape. Several of the bones inside were broken. He was in so much pain that the muscles on his face trembled. He was extremely shocked. A mature divine body was much stronger than a mature one. It was like the difference between the strength of a child and an adult. However, in terms of pure divine power, Zhang Xiu was much weaker than Cheng Lingran. At the same time, a golden shield surged out of Zhang Xiu's body. In a flash, it covered his entire body. The crushing force collided with the golden shield. Zhang Xiu's whole body was thrown away. Zhang Xiu's previous judgment had always been wrong. Cheng Lingran didn't directly appear to kill him. It wasn't because her body was weak to this extent, but because she was afraid of Cheng Lingsu. Without Cheng Lingsu, perhaps he would have already died. Minor repairs. Today you will also die here. The outcome of the battle was decided in the blink of an eye. Cheng Lingran still had such strength despite being seriously injured. This really shocked Zhang Xiu. What a strong physical strength. It's too early for you to be happy. The difference in strength didn't mean that Zhang Xiu was no match for her. How many times had he defeated someone stronger than him? He relied on his wisdom, tenacity, and more importantly, his magic arts. The knife skill in his hand swept out. At this moment, the surrounding power gathered crazily in front of him. The center of the gathering immediately burst out with fierce and strong light. Rip! The long knife cut across the sky. It's useless. She waved her hand and muttered. Her body glided through the void, condensing a pattern of a furious snake. After casting several spells, she let out a roar. What? Zhang Xiu was surprised to see that the long knife that was cut out was shattered all the way from the beginning to the end, as if it had been hit by a level 12 typhoon. What kind of power is this? Zhang Xiu was extremely shocked. It was true that her physical strength was not as good as Cheng Lingran's, but they were in the same realm. There should be no difference in magical power. Then, there should be no reason for the sound wave to directly shatter his knife skill. Only the knife skill could cut off the sound wave. You are too weak. Cheng Lingran said coldly. Roar. There was another sound. Zhang Xiu was shocked. He couldn't dodge in time. His whole body shook violently. He felt that a strong force was about to penetrate his body. Immediately, his body blurred and rippled like water. Although most of the power was dissipated, he still couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. It's the Protoss talent, the racial talent of the mature stage. After understanding this, Zhang Xiu's gaze became extremely solemn. My divine power is stronger than yours. Although my magical power is not as good as yours, I have the racial talent to make up for it. That's right. It's a pity that Cheng Lingsu bled you every day. In the end, you died before you could enter the mature stage. Give me your life. Chapter 8:11. Zhang Xiu's expression changed as a violet light flashed in his eyes. In the air around him, popping sounds could be heard as the power of the void was activated as a monument appeared in the sky. This was Zhang Xiu's greatest and final trump card. Virtuous God-sealing monument. In an instant, the sound of flowers blooming could be heard in the sky. Numerous dazzling golden flowers bloomed in the air, illuminating the sky in an incomparably beautiful and dazzling manner. Blooming in the sky, and such dazzling golden flowers at that. It was truly an eye-opener, extremely mysterious. Where did these flowers come from exactly? Flowers blooming in the sky, this was an astronomical phenomenon that would only appear when one had great merits and achievements. Moreover, the flowers that appeared were all ordinary and strange flowers, all of them golden in color. This was truly unheard of. From this, one could see how heavy the merits were. Suppress. Zhang Xiu spat out, causing the entire sky to tremble. His divine physique was inferior to hers, and his magic power was suppressed by her race's innate talent. However, Zhang Xiu had the incomparable God-sealing monument as well as the accumulated light of virtue from the entire immortal martial continent. In a life-and-death battle, the dagger would eventually appear. Zhang Xiu, die. Zhang Xiu inclined his head, his long hair fluttering in the wind, revealing a cold and emotionless face. He continued to chant the incantation of the grand God-sealing art, causing the entire sky to rumble with the sound of a chant. In the sky above the 9 heavens, the grand God-sealing monument appeared, pressing down from the sky. The sword art that slashed down from the sky seemed to be unable to survive in this world. A huge change occurred to the structure of the material, but it also seemed to have suffered great destruction. The sword art crumbled, turning into pieces that were blown away by the wind. How can this be? The grand God-sealing monument in the sky continued to descend, bringing with it an incomparably heavy aura. With a thunderous boom, it landed on a certain location, suppressing this world. No. The golden light covered the entire world. In Zhang Xiu's vision, he could only faintly see that at the instant it landed, it was as if the entire world was smashing down with it. A violent suppressive force wreaked havoc. Minor repairs. Zhang Xiu could only watch with difficulty as Cheng Lingran reached out to Zhang Xiu in despair. Just like the last 2 times in the water, Xie Ting and Zhao Rong reached out to him for help, with a pleading look in their eyes. Zhang Xiu had reached out his hand the previous 2 times, but this time, he definitely wouldn't. His eyes were cold and emotionless. Die. Within the golden light, Cheng Lingran's figure slowly dissipated until it completely disappeared. The golden light slowly receded, and the heavenly wind blew in the sky. Only a strand of torn cloth was fluttering in the air, and the owner of the cloth, Cheng Lingran, had already been crushed into pieces. Everything returned to normal. Dead. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the torn cloth that was blown by the heavenly wind. His cold eyes gradually turned into endless sadness. They're all dead. He could only sigh about Cheng Lingran's death. Although he hated it, it was all in the past. After all, they grew up together. However, Cheng Lingsu's death broke his heart. Not only did he lose Cheng Lingsu, but he also had to bear the burden of shame and guilt. He didn't know how to atone for his sins. It's all over. The crowd below couldn't see the situation clearly, but Zhang Xiu saw the patriarch of Tianwen clan, a person who betrayed Cheng Lingsu and almost killed him. With a loud bang, he rushed into the palace of ancient courtyard with nowhere to vent his anger and killing intent. You don't come over. Tianwen clan's patriarch said nervously when he saw the murderous Zhang Xiu. You have to die too. Go down and be buried with Su Su. Tianwen clan's patriarch said, No, Zhang Xiu, you can't kill me. I'm the patriarch of Tianwen clan, and you're also from the Tianwen clan. More accurately, I'm your patriarch. We're from a large clan, and we have very few clansmen left. We can't kill each other anymore. Zhang Xiu said, What does this have to do with me? To me, the Tianwen clan is the same as everyone else. Those who offend me, Zhang Xiu, must die. With a whoosh, Jiang Xiu rushed forward. He only passed by the patriarch's side, but his powerful speed and shocking strength caused Tianwen clan's patriarch to explode into a cloud of blood. His blood floated in the hall. Kill him. There were still many people in the hall who looked at Jiang Xiu in shock. The person in front of them was so powerful that no one could be his opponent after the death of the Divine Emperor. A few days later, Jiang Xiu erected a tombstone for Chang Lingsu on the peak of ancient courtyard. Divine Emperor Jiang, this is a letter left behind by the Divine Emperor many years ago. She said that if she were to fall one day, this item would be handed over to you. Jiang Xiu took it. What is it? After opening it, there was a square seal. Seeing this square seal, the heavenly officials of ancient courtyard all looked at each other in dismay. Then, they all knelt down and saluted. We pay our respects to the Divine Emperor. Jiang Xiu said, What do you mean? The leading heavenly official said, This is the divine seal of ancient courtyard. It symbolizes the supreme position. The Divine Emperor passed this seal to Divine Emperor Jiang. Of course, the Divine Emperor wants Divine Emperor Jiang to lead ancient courtyard and become the Lord of ancient courtyard. At this moment, Jiang Xiu was dispirited. His endurance was very strong. Zhao Rong's death, although occasionally sad, would not affect him. However, Su Su's death was a great blow to him. These days, every time he thought of what Su Su had done for him, but he still treated her like this, his heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. Let's talk about it later. Although the divine seal was formed, Jiang Xiu had no interest in taking over ancient courtyard. He wanted to leave this sad place. The heavenly officials looked at each other. The fall of the Divine Emperor meant that ancient courtyard had no master. This was simply a disaster for them. Yes, this divine seal. After Jiang Xiu came into contact with this divine seal, a strange feeling came over him. This was Chang Lingsu's feeling. Then, he saw a great change and a mysterious derivation. This is the Great Fate Technique. The reason why Chang Lingsu knew the Great Fate Technique was not unique to her. It was passed down from the previous Divine Emperor of Ancient Courtyard. The Great Fate Technique should be an inheritance of Ancient Courtyard, so it was stored in the Divine Seal. The Great Fate Technique could only be used once in a Divine Emperor's life. If Jiang Xiu grasped it, he could use it once. He could also use it to save Su Su, but it was ineffective against Divine Emperors. Jiang Xiu made a white wreath for Chang Lingsu and placed it in front of her grave. You can use the Great Fate Technique to save me, but I can't. I owe you again. If there is a next life, I will be your slave and serve you. 2 streams of tears once again flowed down from the corners of Jiang Xiu's eyes as he sobbed softly. At this moment, he felt that he had lost everything. What descending from the heavens to cleanse the 9 profound mysteries? 1,000 years of hard work. What unrestrained romance! It was nothing but a huge joke. In the Divine Seal and the Great Fate Technique, Jiang Xiu saw everything. At that time, many years after Jiang Xiu's death, his body was discovered. Tianqing School held a funeral for him. It was Su Su who used the Great Fate Technique, which could only be used once, to save him, allowing Jiang Xiu to return to his youth. Because of this, he was almost killed by Cheng Lingren's sneak attack. Jiang Xiu also saw that when Cheng Lingsu was 5 years old, she pulled Jiang Xiu's mother and Jiang Xiu, who had fainted from hunger on the street, back home. The little girl, who had never made a fire before, tried many times before she could light it up. At that time, she used kerosene and learned from her mother to cook some thin porridge. Jiang Xiu seriously suspected that the porridge was raw. But even if it was raw, the mother and daughter were saved by the porridge. Later, after cooking it a few times, they learned how to cook it. They fed them a total of 5 tons of porridge for 2 days and 1 night. When Jiang Xiu's mother woke up and asked her why, she said that she was Jiang Xiu's wife. At that time, Jiang Xiu's mother shed tears. At that time, Jiang Xiu was confused. Now, Jiang Xiu also shed tears. No wonder after the Great Fate Technique, Jiang Xiu's mother was unreasonable and insisted that Jiang Xiu marry Chang Lingsu. She even forced him to marry her. Now, it seemed that the one who didn't understand was Zhang Xiu, and the one who didn't understand was Zhang Xiu. He also saw that Cheng Lingsu bled every day for him. Not just a day or two, but every day for more than 1,000 years. She was afraid that the divine emperor's blood in the blood pool was too little and wouldn't be of any help to Zhang Xiu, so she put in more. Every day, he suffered from anemia. He didn't have enough energy, he felt dizzy, and he even fainted on the ground. The people around him found it hard to imagine that the dignified divine emperor, who was entrusted to nothingness and was an existence that even the divine king couldn't kill, would be so weak that he fainted during a court meeting. Su, I was wrong. Chapter 8:12. I have to save you. I have to. Zhang Xiu clenched his fists, and his body trembled. He couldn't accept the fact that she had died in such a way. The great fate art couldn't kill or save a god emperor. However, Zhang Xiu speculated that Cheng Lingsu's great fate art couldn't kill a god emperor because she was only a god emperor. She couldn't kill a god emperor. But what if Zhang Xiu became an ancient god? What kind of existence would he be? Would he be able to use the great fate art to kill a god emperor? There might only be a 1 in 10,000 chance, but as long as there was a possibility, Zhang Xiu wouldn't give up. Su, wait for me. But to inherit the great fate art, he had to be a god emperor of ancient court. Zhang Xiu stood up and said, "Are you willing to honor me as the god emperor?" The heavenly officials behind him said, "We are willing." This was Cheng Lingsu's last wish. The previous ancient court sovereigns were appointed by the previous god emperor, so they naturally didn't have any objections. Zhang Xiu was from the Tianwen clan, which was also a god emperor. Even Cheng Lingran was killed by him. His strength and status were all suitable. Originally, they wanted to elect Zhang Xiu as the next god emperor. We pay our respects to Lord God Emperor. We pay our respects to. After keeping vigil for Cheng Lingsu, Zhang Xiu officially inherited the position of ancient court sovereign. Then, he went into seclusion to absorb the power of the great fate art from the divine seal. It wasn't a coincidence that the great fate art was ranked first among the 3,000 great das. The most mysterious thing about humans was fate. There was no chant or cultivation method for this art. Its power could only be obtained from the ancient court divine seal. Zhang Xiu's fate changed from then on. He sensed the laws of the world's various fates. Like Cheng Lingran said, it was impossible for Cheng Lingsu to do whatever she wanted. Of course, this was all in the future. Spring passed and autumn came. Several years passed in the blink of an eye. After Zhang Xiu grasped the great fate technique and stabilized the situation in ancient court, he planned to enter the blood pool. I'm going to enter the blood pool. I'll leave the matters of ancient court to the heavenly officials. He didn't dare to use the great destiny technique to twist the wheel of fate. He could only pull it once in his life. If he failed, it would be impossible for him to save Cheng Lingsu. Your Majesty! Zhang Xiu once again appeared in Tianwen village. Unlike the others, he only killed the patriarch of Tianwen village and didn't touch anyone else in the village. After all, this was the Tianwen clan, and Cheng Lingsu was indebted to them. Greetings, Your Majesty. De Mao and the two little brats also ran over. Ever since they were taught a lesson by Zhang Xiu, they didn't dare to have any bad thoughts about Zhang Xiu. Moreover, Zhang Xiu was now the emperor of ancient court. I'm going to enter the blood pool. Are you going to fish me out and hang me on a tree again? Hee. Little Fatty scratched his head awkwardly and laughed foolishly. We don't dare. We can fish anyone but you. De Mao immediately expressed that he didn't dare to do it. The villagers were very enthusiastic. Your Majesty wants to enter the blood pool? The new patriarch of Tianwen village was elected by everyone. He was a middle-aged man who looked like he was in his 40s. He had a square face, stubble, and silver runes all over his body. Yes, enter the Emperor blood pool. After entering the mature stage, there's a chance to become an ancient god. This was Zhang Xiu's original intention, and there was nothing to hide. However, the other party looked troubled after hearing this. He wanted to say something but stopped. "What's wrong?" Tianwen Village's patriarch said, "Your Majesty, I don't know if I should say this." "What's there to not say? Say it." Tianwen Village's patriarch said, "There have been countless emperor gods in ancient court. Logically speaking, there have been 109 emperor gods who have fallen. They weren't killed, nor was it the end of their lives. It was because they wanted to break through to the ancient god realm. The current world is no longer the ancient times, and the power of the ancient god realm is a power that transcends this world. Simply put, it's too heaven-defying, and heaven and earth can't tolerate it. If there are no accidents, Your Majesty might fall on the spot like those emperor gods who pursued the ancient god realm in the past. Or you might be seriously injured and die." When Zhang Xiu heard this, his expression changed drastically. So there was actually such a thing. If that was the case, then the previous clan leader of the Tianwen clan had wanted to kill him from the start. It was laughable that Zhang Xiu was still rejoicing that the Tianwen clan had found such a great talent. "Is there an exception?" Zhang Xiu asked. Tianwen Village's patriarch shook his head helplessly. "There is." De Mao, who was at the side, continued, "How could there not be? Isn't the old ancestor an ancient god? He didn't resist heaven and earth and survive. However, he seemed to have escaped to some other place to undergo his tribulation before returning." Zhang Xiu's brows twitched, and his eyes lit up. In his mind, the scene of the immortal martial continent's Buzhou god fighting against heaven and earth appeared. Under the pitch-black sky, the waves crashed, and lightning flashed. Looking at De Mao, who was ridiculously mischievous, Zhang Xiu pinched his cheeks and said, "You're the most mischievous." De Mao stuck his tongue out at Zhang Xiu. "Let's prepare to head to the blood pool." Tianwen Village's patriarch said, "Your Majesty, do you still insist on entering the blood pool?" "Yes, let's prepare." The villagers were helpless. However, Zhang Xiu's status was revered, and their relationship with him wasn't that close. They didn't dare to rashly stop Zhang Xiu. Tianwen Village's patriarch could only bring Zhang Xiu to the blood pool. Everything was done with familiarity, and very soon, they arrived at the emperor-grade blood pool. As for Little Fatty and the other brats, they had long been stopped outside. After entering the blood pool, Zhang Xiu was once again overjoyed, and very soon, he felt like he was about to fall asleep. According to the previous pattern, after entering the mature stage, Zhang Xiu definitely had a chance to break through to the ancient god realm. However, the ancient god realm wasn't tolerated by heaven and earth, so he had to undergo his tribulation. Zhang Xiu guessed that the old ancestor they were talking about, God Buzhou God, might very well have gone to the immortal martial continent. He had no reason to go to the immortal martial continent. He was still filled with emotions towards the immortal martial continent. Moreover, there were still his friends, disciples, and sect there. Moreover, according to Zhang Xiu's guess, the immortal martial continent that God Buzhou God went to should have been a destroyed world. Because, according to the records of the immortal martial continent, the immortal martial continent was already a vast expanse of water, and there was no life at all. Perhaps, the so-called fall of God Buzhou God was actually the departure of God Buzhou God. At this point, Zhang Xiu also recalled that on his way here, he saw a certain abandoned world in space. Unknowingly, Zhang Xiu gradually fell into a deep sleep, just like an animal hibernating. However, his body's reaction was much faster than when he woke up. Moreover, some powers that shouldn't have been awakened were rapidly awakening. His skin slowly turned from silver to black. The blood in the blood pool started to strangely dry up, and the blood particles in the blood pool were directly absorbed by Zhang Xiu, absorbing the mature blood particles into his body. At the same time, the invasion of foreign blood stimulated Zhang Xiu's blood to speed up its awakening and resist. From the outside, Zhang Xiu's skin slowly turned purple. It was said that in ancient times, devils were black, while gods were purple. This was in line with the purple divine seal after becoming a divine emperor. The water level in the blood pool started to drop at a speed visible to the naked eye. Zhang Xiu's body started to absorb the blood in the blood pool as if it was devouring it. Very quickly, the water level dropped. Following the absorption of blood, Jiang Xiu's divine body matured rapidly. His skin slowly turned purple, and even his hair turned purple. He looked like an ancient god sitting cross-legged in the blood pool. At this moment, Jiang Xiu had actually awakened. To be more precise, he was awakened by a strong force of heaven and earth that could fall on his body at any time. If he continued to move forward, he might not be able to survive in this world. However, he had to move forward. If he didn't take this step, Jiang Xiu wouldn't be able to use the great art of destiny to save Cheng Lingsu. However, if he continued to move forward, he would be courting death. Therefore, he activated his third divine ability and separated a strand of his consciousness. He left the blood pool and entered the depths of the universe as if he was entering the great void, to search for another barren world. He didn't search in the direction of the immortal martial continent. Instead, he went in the opposite direction, hoping that he would be lucky enough to find it quickly. Chapter 8:13. The universe was vast and boundless, and time and space were in disorder. Some strange forces existed in some places. Sometimes, spaceships or interstellar wanderers could be seen. Shuttling through the universe, Jiang Xiu's eyes were like lightning as he scanned everything around him. There were countless planets, including mechanical civilizations, alchemy civilizations, and immortal cultivation civilizations. But no matter which world it was, there was no such thing as eternity. If there was birth, there would be destruction. It was just a matter of time. Some scientists on Earth said that humans on Earth had been destroyed twice, and the same was true for the worlds on other planets. There should be a lot of places like this. The accumulated power above Jiang Xiu's head was getting stronger and stronger. As he absorbed the blood in the blood pool and approached the edge of breaking through to the ancient god realm, it could fall on Jiang Xiu's head at any time and destroy him. Where is it? Where is it? Jiang Xiu was a little anxious. He felt an unprecedented fear. He had a premonition that this power was not something he could resist. The only way was to seek rebirth. Found it. In the distance, there was a deserted planet. There were buildings, mechanical spaceships, and some tall stone statues. It didn't look like a cultivation civilization, but more like a mechanical civilization. This is it. With a swoosh, Jiang Xiu flew out of the blood pool and soared into the sky at an unimaginable speed. The blood in the blood pool was also like a red tail that stretched for more than 10 meters. The entire blood pool was swept away, revealing the deep blood pool. It was cleaner than anything else, without a speck of dust. With a red luster, Jiang Xiu left no leeway at this moment. He wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. Otherwise, this world would not tolerate him and would be destroyed by him. Quick! After he rushed into the universe, he was like an aurora, shining and radiating for thousands of miles. His speed reached an unprecedented level. This was the speed he displayed when he was infinitely close to the ancient god realm. He felt that the terrible destructive force fell and chased after him. It was like a mortal enemy that wanted to completely tear him apart. Jiang Xiu fled desperately, and his soul almost flew out. Boom! When Jiang Xiu entered that planet, it was almost a line away. When he crossed the boundary power of this world, the power of the world that was chasing him almost crushed him. However, such a huge power disappeared without a trace when Jiang Xiu entered another world. It was as if the terrifying destructive pursuit he had just experienced was just an illusion. Hoo! Jiang Xiu let out a long sigh of relief. However, his calamity was not over yet. In the desolate world he had entered, the sky suddenly changed. The curtain of night suddenly fell. Strong winds blew in the sky, and waves swept up into the sky. He quickly landed on top of a tall mountain. The heavy metal here was very heavy, and there were abandoned mining machines all around. They were badly burned, and their original shapes were unrecognizable. From the looks of it, it should be a technological civilization. However, Jiang Xiu saw another gravity-changing device in the distance. He had seen such a device on a backward planet before. This was also a martial arts civilization. It should be a place where martial arts flourish through technology. There's no life. Sensing the surroundings, there were no animals. Not to mention high-level humans, it should have been completely subverted. Of course, as long as the world existed, there was a possibility of rebirth. However, from the looks of the current situation, the destruction might not have been very long. It might take hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years, or even hundreds of millions of years. The sea would turn into mulberry fields, and the original world would be covered. Then, living creatures would evolve into humans, and a new civilization would be born. However, the new civilization would basically continue the civilization left behind by the previous one. They would discover all the secrets of the past underground, and then research and develop. There might be some deviation, but it would not be too far off. However, Zhang Xiu's arrival was bound to change everything. Ah! Zhang Xiu let out a loud roar that shook thousands of miles. His whole body emitted a terrifying purple light. It was as if he had gone crazy. Strong winds swept around him, and lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Rumble, rumble, rumble. An incomparably terrifying astronomical phenomenon, just like what God Buzhou had seen in the immortal martial continent. It was earth-shattering and the world was collapsing. Expand. His entire body began to expand at a speed visible to the naked eye. 1,000 meters, 10,000 meters, 1,000,000 meters. His body was so huge that it had never been seen before. It was as if he was a god who had created the world. He waved his hands furiously, using his incomparably powerful strength to suppress the other party's strength. Is this the power of an ancient god? The runes on his body emitted a dazzling light, giving him unlimited strength to forcibly resist the world that was about to collapse. Zhang Xiu was incomparably furious. Because if he was not allowed to exist, he would have to destroy this world. The heavens were unfair. Then he would defy the heavens. Appear. The great divine seal monument appeared in the sky, directly suppressing this world. Golden light shone resplendently, covering thousands of miles. It was like the scorching sun breaking through the sun, separating yin and yang. One side was yin, and the other was yang. Rise. At the next moment, golden flowers bloomed, covering thousands of miles. Rumble, rumble. There was still a patch of red blood on Zhang Xiu's body, making popping sounds around him. Droplets of blood rose up. At this moment, it was as if they were alive. Without any warning, they suddenly sank into Zhang Xiu's body. Then, with a loud bang, it was as if a bomb had been detonated. When the power in such a huge person exploded, the power was simply unimaginable. Even the trajectory of the entire planet was deviated. The entire world seemed to have completely collapsed because of this. And the ancient blood in Zhang Xiu's body finally awakened. His eyes turned purple. The eye aperture was the last aperture. Once the eye aperture was opened, it meant that everything was clear. He could see all things and understand all things. He looked at the violent world again and waved his hand gently. As if it had been persuaded, the wondrous scene began to stabilize and calm down. At the next moment, the darkness in the sky dissipated. The sea was calm and there was a gentle breeze in the surroundings. The world returned to tranquility. I've broken through. I finally averted a great disaster. The purple luster of his skin became even deeper. From afar, he looked like a purple person. He chanted an incantation. This was an incantation that he didn't know before, but now, it was as easy as flipping his hand for him who had comprehended the myriad principles. The purple color of his skin faded and was replaced by its previous color. I'm still more used to this. However, even though he had regained his black hair and yellow skin, his eyeballs could not be changed. It was because his eye aperture had been opened. However, the purple eyeballs added a touch of devilish handsomeness to his originally incomparably handsome face. Those who did not know better would think that he was wearing contact lenses. He was simply shameless. Is this the power of the ancient gods? They understand all things. It was really a little nature-defying. Not to mention, Jiang Xiu's divine body had entered the mature stage and was powerful. Just the power of the ancient gods was really nature-defying. Everything in human civilization was based on reason and laws. The ancient gods had a pair of eyes that understood all things. It could be said that they understood everything. They were true ancient gods. Su, I've succeeded. Jiang Xiu originally did not have such high aspirations for the ancient gods. It was not worthwhile to risk his life for it. However, only by becoming an ancient god could he use the great fate technique to pull the gears of fate. I can finally do it. Jiang Xiu's face finally revealed a moving smile. I can finally save Su. Looking at everything here, Jiang Xiu understood why God Buzhou let the goddess appear after he went to the immortal martial continent. He wanted to make up for it, or rather, to thank the immortal martial continent for helping him survive. However, the setting of the goddess had caused Jiang Xiu to suffer. Therefore, Jiang Xiu would not walk the same path as God Buzhou. That's it, an unknown world. Jiang Xiu flew away and took one last look at this planet. His thoughts were already immersed in the Great Fate technique. He wanted to use the Great Fate technique that each person only had one chance to use. He wanted to pull the giant wheel of fate and let Cheng Lingsu return to this world. Where should I start? Jiang Xiu recalled the node where Cheng Lingsu used the Great Fate technique and smiled. Then let's start here. The world in front of him suddenly turned gray. Under the most mysterious Great Fate technique, the giant wheel of fate began to reverse. Chapter 8:14. As the wheel of fate reversed, Jiang Xiu's vitality was also fading away. At this moment, he finally understood why the Great Fate technique could only be used once in a lifetime. It was too painful. Everything on Earth seemed to be reversing time and space. It was like watching a movie rewinding. Jiang Xiu saw the turning points of fate clearly. Then, his vision became more and more blurry and pale. In the end, all that was left was whiteness. It was as if everything was swallowed by whiteness. Even Jiang Xiu's consciousness disappeared. He didn't know how much time had passed. It might have been a moment, or it might have been countless years. Earth, Rivertown, Cheng family's villa. Bright sunlight scattered in through the window. Cheng Lingsu woke up slowly. She was in a daze. Didn't I commit suicide? Suddenly, she sat up abruptly and looked at the situation around her in astonishment. This is my home in Rivertown. I'm back. What's going on? Sun Xiaohong's voice came from downstairs. Su, wake up. You're going to be late for school. School? Cheng Lingsu looked at the wardrobe. There was a brand new school uniform hanging there. It was the uniform of Rivertown No. 2 High School. She got down from the bed suspiciously. However, she didn't notice that she was only wearing a small singlet. She could clearly see the situation inside. Although her body wasn't fully grown yet, it was already enough to make many adult women envious. It was quite large. There was even a picture of a little bear printed on the back of the shorts. The dignified Shen Huang didn't have any manners. Was he trying to eat someone to death? It was too tempting. High school uniform. Am I in my first year of high school? She remembered that she had only foolishly hung her school uniform like this in her first year of high school. Later, when she grew up and cared about her appearance, she hated school uniforms very much. Hurry up and come down. You're going to be late. Oh. She took her time to change her clothes. Her heart was filled with doubt. How did I survive? Did Jiang Xiu use the great art of destiny to save me? That's impossible. The great art of destiny can't shake a divine emperor. When they went downstairs, Sun Xiaohong and her father, Chang Hanlin, were already having breakfast at the dining table. Seeing her parents, Cheng Lingsu was quite touched. She went forward and hugged Sun Xiaohong, calling sweetly, "Mom." Sun Xiaohong didn't expect her daughter to do this. She was so happy that her mouth was crooked. She gently patted her daughter's pure face. In her first year of high school, Cheng Lingsu was 16 years old. A pink and tender big loli. Sit down and eat. Sun Xiaohong gestured for her to sit down. By the way, the poor boy from the Zhang family is also studying in your school. You should stay away from him in the future, okay? Zhang Xiu. Cheng Lingsu's heart skipped a beat. A strange expression appeared on her face. Did I not die? Did I travel back to my youth? Yes, you can't go wrong if you listen to Mom. Chung Hanlin sat at the side. As if he didn't hear anything, he put down his chopsticks and picked up the newspaper on the table to read. Oh! Cheng Lingsu's face was full of smiles. She remembered that when she used the great art of destiny, she wanted to return to her first year of high school, or even earlier. However, Chung Lingran messed up her plan. In the end, she was in her third year of high school. Zhang Xiu, bad guy. She quickly finished her breakfast. Carrying her school bag, she ran out of the house. The sun was shining brightly. It was the beginning of September, the start of school season. The weather was still a little hot. She was wearing a summer school uniform with short sleeves and a short skirt. Of course, the school uniform wasn't good-looking. However, on Cheng Lingsu, it was really beautiful. It was no wonder that so many big bosses liked innocent girls. The family chauffeur sent her all the way to Zhongqing Second High School. Many students at the school gate had already walked in. The bustling campus, the familiar teaching building. Everything was back. Hey, look, what a beautiful girl. What's her name? Damn, she's definitely at the level of the school belle. Our second high school is awesome. The boys talked about her when they saw her. Her beauty was just like when she first came to second high school. In the past, she was as cold as ice and allowed others to judge her. However, today, her faint smile was like a spring breeze. She was looking forward to that unprecedented meeting. What will Zhang Xiu be like? Will he be the first to be submissive and self-abased? Or will he be the arrogant and despotic Zhang Luoxia later? I'm really looking forward to it. She deliberately walked over to Zhang Xiu's class. However, she didn't see him in that seat. She was slightly disappointed. However, it was time for class. Let's go to class first. None of the students around her changed. Her class didn't change either. The teacher and head teacher were the same. However, she wasn't in the mood to listen to the class. She looked out of the window. The campus was very quiet during class. Only the sound of the wind blowing the leaves could be heard. Teacher, I want to go to the washroom. How could the teacher bear to reject such a beautiful female student? Moreover, she was a top student. Cheng Lingsu thought to herself, you weren't in the classroom just now. Now that class has started, you should be here. Go ahead. Cheng Lingsu went out of the classroom. However, she didn't go to the washroom. Instead, she went to the classroom of Class 5. She wanted to see Zhang Xiu. However, she didn't expect that Zhang Xiu's seat was empty. Why is he not here again? She had no choice but to go to the washroom. Suddenly, a small stone was thrown and hit her on the head. The Divine Emperor was furious. Who dares to sneak attack this Divine Emperor? She turned her head and saw Zhang Xiu leaning against a tree with a small stone in his hand. However, his eyes were purple and revealed a melancholy and wisdom that didn't match his age. When she saw Zhang Xiu's purple eyes, she understood what was going on. It wasn't transmigration. Zhang Xiu had advanced to the ancient god realm. He used the power of the ancient god realm to pull the great fate technique. Even a divine emperor like her couldn't resist it. Don't go. Cheng Lingsu's arm was grabbed by him. She struggled a few times but couldn't break free. She was fuming. It was all because of this scoundrel. He didn't believe her no matter what. Otherwise, she wouldn't have walked on this path of no return. Now that you're satisfied, you can bully me however you want. Zhang Xiu said, How could I bully you? I can't wait to dote on you. When these words came out, Zhang Luoxia felt goosebumps all over his body. He had never said such mushy words in his life. Cheng Lingsu couldn't help but smile. However, her eyes immediately dimmed. She tested her body. When she died, her divine Emperor Godhead had already shattered. The great fate technique could no longer surpass the heavens. In other words, no matter how hard she cultivated, she wouldn't be able to condense a divine Emperor Godhead. She also wouldn't be able to obtain the approval of the heavens. Jiang Xiu whispered in her ear, "Sister, I'll teach you how to cultivate." If she couldn't cultivate, she could cultivate. Chang Lingsu pursed her lips and said, "It'll still be very slow." Jiang Xiu looked at her pure appearance and held her hands in his. His eyes were burning as he said, "You have a special constitution. This sovereign can cultivate with you. It'll be very fast. Immortal secret techniques, you know." "What?" Jiang Xiu pulled her hand and said, "Let's go. I'll take you to the little forest." The little forest was a sacred place for the school students to have affairs. 9 out of 10 girls who entered would lose their virginity there. Su didn't understand at first, but now her charming face flushed red. "Don't mess around. I'm still young." Jiang Xiu glanced at her chest. "It's not small." "Hooligan," Su scolded. Our lovely Su was like a helpless little lamb that was coaxed into the little forest by Jiang Xiu. In the dense forest, Su's delicate gasps could be heard. "Don't. Minor repairs. Where can't I touch?" Her delicate body couldn't withstand Jiang Xiu's ravaging. Our Su was super pitiful, but she looked at the man in front of her with eyes full of love. She could only curse inwardly. Damn it, the skirt was so short that it didn't have any protection. The forest swayed. Jiang Xiu and Chang Lingsu followed in the footsteps of countless seniors in Jiang City's No. 2 high school. After a long time, Su was led out of the little forest by Jiang Xiu. But as luck would have it, just as they left the little forest, they bumped into a teacher from the teaching office. The teacher was stunned on the spot. These 2 students were openly signing their little hands. He shouted, "How dare you? Let go. Which class are you from? You're out of control. How dare you fall in love so early? Go, call your parents." You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.